How you doing, guys? Big Mac Dan here again today, back with another video for you. I'm just going to show you how I build these miniatures that come with the first issue of Combat Patrol magazine. We're going to be building the Space Marine Captain first in Terminator armor, and yeah, it's going to be nice and easy. I've got a few things here. That is a Citadel mold line remover. You can get them from Games Workshop. You can get them off eBay from third-party companies sell them, but it's basically the same sort of shape there. It's a hard piece of plastic with a 90-degree edge on it for scraping off little excess bits of plastic that appear when there's a slight gap in the mold that makes the injection molded plastic. So there's a line where you don't want a line on it, basically. They're really useful. Some people say the rubbish tools, but actually I find them really good. I think if you can't use them, there might be something wrong with your dexterity or something, I don't know. But for me, it's really good. It's a simple tool. You hold the plastic with your thumb there like that, and then you scrape along like that. Good thing about them is, compared to a hobby knife, you are far less likely to cut yourself with this. Look, you can stab yourself like that and nothing's happening. I'm not really stabbing at all. These are some clippers. These are really worse for wear, these ones. You can see the sort of gnarled edge on them, but I don't mind cleaning up the plastic afterwards. We've got a few different glues here. This is actually something called sprue goo. So it's something you mix yourself using excess bits of sprue. You can drop it into some Tamiya thin cement, or Tamiya thick, I think it might work with as well, I'm not too sure. It's polystyrene cement. It's a glue that this here is polystyrene cement, or Tamiya extra thin cement. It's a glue that basically melts the plastic, so it creates a chemical, like a plastic bond, rather than super glue, which is a thing that uses itself to stick things to things. So you can, if you're working with resin models or metal models, older models, use super glue. If you're working with this sort of plastic model from Games Workshop, just use something like the plastic glue. You can get it from Games Workshop, you can get it from other companies as well. Anyway, yeah, let's move these off here. We've got the base, we've got everything we need pretty much. I don't actually have any files with me, but it doesn't really matter. We can clean up most of what we need to clean up with the mold line remover, I'm sure. This part is the Tyranid miniature that comes with the first issue. This is the Space Marine miniature, so I'm just going to snap these sprues to start. So we're only working with one. So first off, we're going to go 14, 13 and 12. So let's find these parts on the sprue. There's 14, 12 and 13, all nicely together there. What I'm doing here, I'm putting the flat side of the snippers to the piece of the plastic that is the model itself, and then this side, the curved edge, the beveled edge, towards the sprue. So that means basically when you look at the sprue here now, hopefully that's focusing, I can't quite see because the light is on it, but that's got a pointy edge, whereas it's a flat edge where I've snipped it off, or a more or less flat edge anyway, where I've snipped it off there. And these excess mold lines and stuff that I'm talking about are like, you can just about make out around this, where I've snipped it off the sprue there, you can probably just about make out there's a mold line there. So that's the sort of thing we're talking about, and one on here as well, if you couldn't see that first one. It just runs there. It's just an excess bit of plastic that we need to scrape off. And here's how I do it. Scrapes it nicely, and then you can run your fingernail over it and it feels relatively smooth now in comparison. This mold line we don't have to worry about too much because it's going to be hidden by a large part of the model, but it's nice to clean it up just in case anybody catches a sight of the inside of that cave there. There's this little bit here. We can, have I got a box cutter here or a hobby knife? I've not, so, oh, I have got a knife actually. This is just a scalpel blade, like a cheap scalpel blade from eBay or something. And then just slice that off there, slice a bit more of that off. It's really old and rusted, that, but it works for what I need. You'll notice though that I am cutting away from myself. With a fresh blade, I'd actually cut towards myself like that, because I feel I have more control holding the piece with my thumb and pulling it towards me, and I'm not going to slip and get my thumb. But with a more blunt blade, I like to cut away where possible, just to get that excess off, and then I'll go over it again with the curved side of the mold line remover, just get it down. I just shave it off like that. And like I said, I don't know why people have such bad relationships with these mold line removers, to be honest, because for me, they're really useful to use. You can pull it away from yourself, you pull it towards yourself, and if it slips, it's not gonna hurt you. Just clean up these a little bit. Gonna shave that bit off there. Apologise for any shaking. You're just gonna have to cope with that, aren't you? So it's looking around the model for any other little bits of mold line and areas where I've clipped it away from the sprue. The mold line remover for me just cleans it up really nicely. It will occasionally take a little bit more plastic than you want it to take. But what you're looking for is a smooth surface. Just run your nail over it and it'll give you an idea if that's smooth enough to just spray some paint on. Like, here's some smooth plastic here. It feels really smooth, ridiculously smooth. Run my nail over this piece here. It's not smooth at all. You feel a lot of resistance there. But this piece here that I've just clipped, it feels relatively smooth, much like the just the fresh plastic that's not had any piece clipped off it. This piece here, I don't need to do. Tell you what I will do though with this piece. I will actually cut it down with a scalpel because it's good where two parts of the model connect. So it will need shaving off, despite the fact that it won't be seen. This piece here probably won't be seen, but I'll just give it a quick shave to tidy it up somewhat. There we go. In the magazine, you see they go 1, 14, 13, 12, so that's how I'm going to stick them together. With this piece in the middle, this piece on the back, that just slots in there like that. And that goes together really nicely, just as is. You can look all over the model there. There's a few little areas where the plastic looks like stressed, so we can clean them bits up a little bit, just with the scalpel. Be very careful if you're a youngster using the scalpel, of course. That's why I am a big proponent of the mold line remover as well, because you're far less likely to injure yourself with that. I can press on it very hard. It doesn't break the skin at all. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. No other areas there as far as I can see that need much attention. A little bit on the bottom of the cape there. And all I'm gonna do now is just get my Tamiya thin cement and then run it over some of these joints, and then that should create a bond between the plastic. What you can do as well, if you don't want to waste your time with the mold line remover, I say waste your time, it's, you know, you spend as much time on it as you want. But you can actually run a bit of Tamiya thin cement over mold lines, and then it'll just soften them slightly. And blend them in a little bit with the rest of the model. Now, not perfectly, so I don't do it myself. But yeah, these bits here, just gonna stick them in there. There's a chunky mold line going up the side of the armour there. We'll sort that out in a bit there. I think that's gonna be visible for quite some time. All these areas of connection here, I just wanna run the cement into. And it'll pretty much find its own path. If you drop it into the various parts of the model, it'll find its own path into the grooves and stuff. One thing you don't want to do with this polystyrene cement, Tamiya thin cement that I'm using, is you don't want to press and hold on it too long, because it will bond to your fingers slightly, and then you pull it away and then they'll all be like webbing of it, almost like Spider-Man webs of the glue and plastic bonded to your finger. So yeah, don't hold on to it for too long. If you do realise it's touching your finger, pull your hand away as soon as possible. I don't know what kind of damage it could do to your skin. I've never had any major issues with it, but the main thing for me is you don't want the model getting damaged and looking silly. You'll notice I'm being careful not to put any pressure on this iron halo, because that is obviously a very relatively thin connection point there, so I don't want to risk snapping that. So that's the first part of the model put together. But moving on to the next part, we want 15 and 16, which is make up one of the arms, the sword arm. Just put the lid back on that and move it out of the way. So So there's 16 there. You want to be very careful near the edges of swords and stuff not to pull any of the plastic away. One thing some people do is cut a little bit further away from the model, leave an excess bit of sprue on there. And I'll just show you here as an example, like I did at the bottom of that sword. So if you look at the end of the sword there, there's an excess bit of sprue, and we can just snip that off at a later date if you've got a sharp scalpel blade. I say at a later date, at a later time. Sharp scalpel blade, but I'm confident with these clippers that I'm not going to take any extra of that model off. So I've left even a little bit on there, so I can go at it again and again. There we go. I'm quite confident in my ability to do that. I've been hobbying quite some years now. We want shoulder pad 15. So yeah, I'm pretty confident I'm not going to damage it, and if I do damage it, I can do one of a few things. If you damage a model when you're taking it off the sprue, you can try and make it look like battle damage if you want, which is one way of repairing, to use air quotation marks. But you can also just repair it with a bit of putty or filing it down and making it look like a natural piece of the model. Again, just scraping little bits of plastic off here where this sprue was connected, or where this piece was connected to the sprue rather. All of under this shoulder pad is going to be hidden. So I won't pay too much attention to that. But I will just take a little bit of excess plastic off there. I do apologise if it's unclear what I'm doing here, but this being a flat piece on this tilt shield, it's kind of important to get that as smooth as possible. I may have to go in with a file at some stage. I can't see any in my little toolbox there, but I'll try it with the scalpel, just cutting away from myself. But again, like I said, this scalpel is not the sharpest. So then, one thing I always do, you'll probably notice as I build this model, is dry fit the pieces. Now, because these are push fit models, and when you dry fit them, there may be a little bit of struggle to get them back apart. But I'll dry fit them before I put any plastic glue on there. And that just makes me see how they fit. If I want to change the pose at all, like if I wanted to raise the sword or something like that, I could always take that plug off that the sword arm sticks onto. But I'm not gonna mess with this model too much. It's for a tutorial after all, and it's my first time building one of these new Terminator models. But yeah, I'm just gonna put some glue in here in the shoulder socket and push that on there. And then it sits behind him like he's striding forward, as we see in the picture just there. It's all going to be pretty much it's going to be much of the same as we go to pieces 18, 19 and then 17. One thing I've noticed on these Terminator models, the muzzle flash and the barrel itself, I think they're getting a little bit smaller in these newer models from Games Workshop. A little bit smaller, a little bit more fiddly maybe, but a little bit more true scale as well, which is always nice to see. So again, we're just going to dry fit this piece. That fits in there nicely, and then you can see that creates a nice little socket there for the peg to fit into. There we go. Again, just be careful when you're putting these models together. I just caught that iron halo at the top there, but it's not caused any damage, which is good. Next, we're going to go for the headpiece, which is 20. One thing you can do with these models, if you want to paint the face separately, if you want to pay like extra attention to detail with the face, which you may want to, so you can reach all the areas around the face and stuff, is leave the head off until a later date. You may want to just clip around the sprue, just clip off here, and then you've got a nice piece of sprue you can hold while you're painting it. Or you may want to run a pin up through it, but it's entirely up to you. I'm just going to put mine straight onto the model and then just paint what I can see. when I come to paint the model. Now, careful if you've got fat fingers like me, mine aren't the fattest, but they're pretty fat, careful in handling the head when you're scraping the mould lines off and stuff, because you may fling it across the room, and if you've got a grey carpet or something, it's going to be really difficult to find, basically. Blowing them little bits of excess plastic off. And you may want to try and put this in with tweezers, because as you can see, my fingers can't get in there. It might have actually been easier to put it on before you put the shoulder pads on. Gotta try and work that into position and onto the peg there, but it's proving very tricky. One thing you could do, I don't think I've got any blue tack at the minute, but you could blue tack his face to a dowel or something like that, or just the end of the mould line remover. I've got a bit of blue tack on the end there and push it into position. Would make it a little bit easier for myself. There we go, we've got him onto the peg there, I think. What I'm going to do is just use the mould line remover itself, put it into his jaws, just push him on. Careful not to slip though if you do this, because you risk taking a bit of detail off that face there. Scrapes the side of his earpiece there by the looks of it. A little bit of a gouge in there, but it's not too big a problem. So what I'm going to do now is just run a little bit, now he's in there, run a little bit of plastic glue just under his chin. Try and get some around the back of the head there, in the hope that it helps bond to his armour. Last little piece here. These detailed bases from Games Workshop are fantastic in my opinion, because they've got one of the enemies, especially in these boxes, these starter boxes and stuff, because they've got one of the enemy models that the hero characters are stood on. It's just a nice little narrative bit of scenery for him to stand on. Couple of mould lines on this. Here where I pulled it off the sprue, there's an excess bit of plastic. This would be better to fix with a file than a mould line remover, I think, but like I said earlier, I don't have one of those to hand. Now these base pieces are really clever, because they've just got two pegs there that you can just slot straight into the holes on the base. Push straight in, and it's really firm on there as well. Like, you can pull it off if you want to, but there's no need to. And then the model itself slots into the two holes there. Just push that straight down. Careful not to put any pressure on any weak points. And that's him on the base. Fantastic. That is one complete model. There we go. As always, thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the battlefield.